Today we are going over COBRA. My purpose in doing this video is to bring forward what happens in the real world of HR and the problems that I see that come up pretty much every day when administering COBRA. Hi, my name is Melissa DeWeese. I've been working in health insurance for over 20 years now and help HR managers across the US manage their employee benefits packages efficiently, manage costs, yada blah. I have another plug at the end. If you're interested in scheduling a meeting with me, there's a link and all that jazz, and we'll get to that. But again, the purpose of this meeting, yes, we're going to go over the very general what is COBRA, but I really want to dive into the meat and potatoes. If you are an employee as well, you'll probably find this pretty useful and it'll give you some information as to why you may be getting frustrated in the process of signing up for COBRA, or if you're wondering how to sign up for COBRA and some of the potential pitfalls that could come up when you're doing it and what to expect. I think this is useful information for employees and or ex-employees to know about COBRA and the status quo and how it's just an awkward situation for everyone. There never really is a perfect answer in some of these situations, but we'll get to that. So what is COBRA? I've found over the years that a lot of people have a very vague concept of what COBRA is. I hear people say, oh my gosh, COBRA, my COBRA is so expensive, as if it's this separate entity or it's its own insurance or it's a government offered insurance. Like it's the separate government plan. And it is a reconciliation act. It stands for the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, short for COBRA. And what it does is it allows an employee to continue their current coverage through the employer on the group sponsored plan, even when they're not an employee anymore. So if you leave, you lose the coverage for whatever reason, whether you're no longer eligible, maybe you go from full-time to part-time, or you quit, or you're fired, and you lose your coverage, that is a qualifying event for you to go on to COBRA. And most plans will allow you to go on to COBRA 18 to 36 months, depending on what state you're in. In California, they have what's called Cal COBRA, and you get 18 months of federal and 18 months of Cal COBRA for a total of 36 months. But for most people, it's an 18-month extension where you can just continue your current coverage. What happens is most employees are pretty sheltered from the total cost of the insurance. The employer, for most, is paying the majority of the cost of that insurance. So when the employee or the ex-employee gets the bill for COBRA, it's the bill, it's exactly what is billed to the employer every month. Every month the employer gets an itemized bill of every employee that's on their plan with their name and how much the premium is. It's that same dollar amount that the employer was paying, but it's now going to that ex-employee plus a small admin fee. The admin fee is usually around 2%. What the employee is seeing when people say COBRA is expensive, what they should be saying is health insurance is expensive. It's the actual cost of health insurance that the employer was paying the majority of before. And then that obviously is going away. If you're an ex-employee, the employer is no longer paying any contributions towards it, and it's all 100% on that ex-employee, like I said, plus the admin fee. And what happens from that point is you go through a step-by-step process, right? And so your coverage ends, so let's say it's for most plans. Again, some plans end on the same day. So if you get terminated and therefore your employment gets terminated and your health insurance gets terminated on the 15th of April, that's the starting point if you have same day termination with your health insurance. A lot of employers have first of the month, or the end of the month, I should say. So if somebody is terminated April 15th of 2024, their coverage would end at midnight on April 30th. And at that point, the employer has 30 days from the date that you're terminated to notify their COBRA administrator. If you are not in HR, or if you're new to HR, or you're an employee, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Third-party administrator, AKA TPA. Just stands for third party administrator. Employers and brokers like myself often hire third party administrators because we want to be as hands off in the COBRA process as possible. Like I said in the beginning, COBRA is a very sensitive, very awkward situation, especially for the employer. They've just laid off an employee or the employee quit for whatever reason. That employee is now an ex-employee, and there can be some litigious fears, or the employee may be disgruntled. If that's the case, even if it's not the case, the employer usually wants to have as little contact with that employee as possible. And if that contact is made, a lot of it does have to be in writing, it has to be by law, it has to be by the book, to relieve the employer of any liabilities. That's why HR is so important. And with all that said, hiring a third-party administrator ticks that box. So the third-party administrator is notified every time there is an employee terminated or somebody that comes off the plan, and a qualifying event notice then goes out, a COBRA notice goes out to that ex-employee or the person that just lost coverage, letting them know of their COBRA rights, and it gives them some boilerplate information as to what their COBRA rights are, and it also should include a form for you to fill out whether or not you want to continue the COBRA coverage, and it should also include the rates. How much is it going to cost you every month? So this is where things get a little wonky and get frustrating, especially for people that absolutely know that they want coverage right away. Somebody's in the middle of treatment, they have cancer, God forbid, they have a autoimmune condition, they have maintenance medication they need to pick up every month and they use every month, and they see a doctor every month. Those sorts of people get extremely frustrated with this process, because even if you've termed on the 18th, or let's say the middle of April 15th, your coverage doesn't technically end till the end of the month. So your employer has the entire month of May to get that information over to the TPA. And then the TPA has an additional 2 weeks to send you the notice in the mail. So it's usually around 45 days. I think it's even 44 days. I'll look it up here. It'll go through it. But there's a length of time that can take administratively where you're actually showing termed in the system and you haven't paid yet, you haven't filled out your form, you haven't notified your employer that or the TPA or the insurance company that you want to continue. So you'll be showing, if you go to the doctor or the pharmacy, they're going to say, oh yeah, your coverage is terminated. But when you sign up for COBRA, there's no gap in coverage. It will go right back. So again, with the April 31st, let's say it goes through the end of April, you need coverage starting May 1st. COBRA paperwork's out in the ether over here. You're showing as termed for the entire month of April. Let's say you finally get the paperwork turned in at the end of April, or the end of May, a whole month later, coverage gets backdated to May 1st, and those claims are honored. But in the interim, it can be very frustrating for people that need coverage. The insurance company will honor those claims. They will pay out on them. But a lot of people have a hard time paying for things up front in the meantime. So it can be extremely frustrating. There's a couple of things that we do to try to speed this up for people. So if you are an employee that absolutely knows you want to continue COBRA, you need to reach out to your HR person and let them know. Again, I know it's awkward for you too, because you've left or you got fired or whatever the relationship is between you and the HR or you and the employer. If you let your employer know that you need the coverage, it can speed up the process quite a bit. Most people, when they're offered COBRA, do not select it because it is expensive. It is unaffordable for a lot of people, and they may not see the value in paying hundreds of dollars or sometimes even thousands of dollars a month for health insurance. They may go on the exchange, or they may start a new job right away, and well, I'll just wait for that. You know, a lot of people just wait for their new coverage to start. If they have a gap in coverage a couple of months, it's not a big deal. Well, for someone that needs their insurance, it is a big deal and they want to sign up right away. But you have to communicate that, again, because a lot of HR people assume that, you're probably not going to sign up, because most people don't. So they may be dragging their feet or may not realize it's as important to you as it is. Also, if you don't communicate, there are ways, if you do communicate with your HR and let them know you want to select coverage right away, if they're working with a hands-on broker and a hands-on TPA, they should be able to get you the paperwork electronically pretty quickly and at least get you filling out the form. So if we look over here on the calendar, so let's say it's the 15th of April and you've been terminated. You let your employer know you're really interested in COBRA. You want the COBRA packet on that Friday, let's say a couple days later on the 18th. So there's a weekend, so probably around the 21st or 22nd. That whole week of the 21st, depending on the administrator, we could probably get you a COBRA packet, probably via email, and email that to you, and you can start filling it out. Now, we can't turn it in to the insurance until your showing is terminated. Also, until you've paid your premiums. That's another thing that can hold up the process. So some TPAs take payment over the phone. So a lot of times it's just calling, finding out who the COBRA administrator is and calling them directly and making that payment over the phone, or forwarding, getting the check sent overnight, something like that, so that they have the payment in hand so they can send that over to the insurance company is very important. So coverage terminates May 1st, right? We submit it, let's say, on the day. Doesn't always happen that way. We'd love to, everything to work perfectly. Say it goes on May 1st or a couple of days later. The insurance company usually takes 3 to 5 business days to process that. So even if even if we're on top of it and really trying to push these things through, it can still take a week to 2 weeks. And it really does depend on that ex-employee or that employee that wants to go on COBRA, that payment. And that I see the payment and the form, getting the form in, people dragging their feet on that. So the more you drag your feet on that, the longer it's going to take to get coverage reinstated. What is a TPA? A TPA is a third-party administrator that sends out the notices to the employee. A lot of TPAs submit the enrollment form for COBRA and the termination. So when you're ready to terminate the COBRA, you don't have to call your old employer. You can just call the TPA directly. The TPA has 14 days, I think I said 15 before. So you have a total of the 30 days. The employer has 30 days to get that notice, that qualifying event information to the TPA, and then the TPA has 14 days. So a total of 44 days from the qualifying event date and the termination date. So if somebody terminates May 1st, or April 30th, the end of April, that employee may not get that notice until a month and a half later. And that ex-employee who's interested in COBRA now has to pay the premiums because you don't have a gap in coverage. You can't go forward. With COBRA, there's no way to have a gap in coverage. So even if you get the notice a month later, so let's say you get it in June, you're like, well, I don't want coverage in May. Nothing happened in May. I just want June on or July on. You can't do that. They're going to charge you for premiums all the way back to May 1st. So a lot of people have a hard time paying that backdated premium for that month, and then the current month they're in, and the future months, getting caught up on that. But the no gap in coverage can really come in useful for people, and I'll explain why here in a moment. With this point here, it says the participant has 60 days from the latter of the date coverage was lost or the date the election notice was sent to elect COBRA. So this could be 90, 100 some odd days after your coverage terminated. So for people that don't need insurance or don't know that they're going to need insurance, maybe they don't have any medications, they're not planning any surgeries, they don't have ongoing treatment, it may behoove them to just wait and see if there is, let's say, within that 60-day or 90-day window, let's say there's an emergency room and they have a major incident and they end up in the emergency room. It would be a good idea to go back and elect that coverage, right? Even if those premiums are expensive and you're having to backdate and pay 3 months of premiums, it may be less expensive than
a $10,000 hospital bill or 20,000 or 50,000, God forbid, 100,000. It gets crazy out there with all these ambulance companies and surgeons and doctor professional group billings and hospital charges and labs. You go to the hospital nowadays, you get bills from 5 different places and from 5 different entities. So it can really add up. It gets very expensive. This is one kind of loophole that I see people take advantage of quite often, is they just kind of play the wait and see game. They don't elect the COBRA. They let the COBRA notice kind of lag. And that's the other reason too, HR, some people want it lagged for this reason, because it's based 60 days from the date the election notice was sent from COBRA. So it could give somebody up to 90 plus 100 days, 115 days, 114 days to wait and see if they have a major event. And if they do, then they go back and elect it. Hopefully that makes sense. Enrollment and reinstatement. Most plans will not reinstate coverage until after the premium check is received. So we talked about that. Reinstatement can take 3 to 5 business days. So even if we do get the application in on the day that coverage is terminated, that May 1st, it's still going to take about a week for the insurance company to show you as active. During this time, the member may show as termed in the insurance company system.
And they may be frustrated trying to seek services or get a prescription and things like that. Let your provider or your employer know, find out who your TPA is, get their phone number so you can call them, ask them to, and then also what this is saying is you can talk to your provider and ask them to delay billing your insurance company. So if you have an ongoing treatment, let's say you go in on a weekly or monthly basis and you've been going to that doctor for a while, you can let them know that you're transitioning away from your employer and you're going to be electing COBRA, but that you're in the process. And can they just hold off for a couple of weeks, and that you promise you will let them know as soon as you get in the system. If you have a relationship with that doctor's office, they will probably accommodate that. It's not an uncommon request. Some doctors are getting more and more strict about not doing that because people are just not paying. They go and they just don't pay. So that's tough. That's tough for a doctor's office, especially a small doctor's office. All right. If not possible, you may need to pay out of pocket and request reimbursements when coverage is reinstated. So what will likely happen is you will get reimbursed from your provider's office because they'll get paid twice. So for example, let's say you have a doctor's appointment, you absolutely have to go, maybe it's a pre-op or something like that, and it was $300. They charged you $300 to keep your appointment. So you go and you pay the $300. Well, once your coverage is reinstated, the doctor's office is going to submit the claim to the insurance company, and then that insurance company is going to pay the doctor. They're not going to pay you, they're going to pay the doctor. So the doctor's been paid $300 from you and from the insurance company. So at that point, their billing office should calculate what your copay was and what they got paid from the insurance and send you the difference, right? I've seen this take months. I've seen it where it usually happens around the first of the year, where doctors' offices and CPAs and accountants are involved, and they finally reconcile everything and get you a bill or get you a credit, unless you're super persistent asking them for a reimbursement. The other option is with pharmacy. So pharmacy is all electronic. So the pharmacy, they're not filling out paperwork necessarily. They're entering in your information. They have a direct link to the insurance carrier's PBM and their prescription management system. And they know if you're active or not right when they do it. So when they enter you in, they'll say you're not active. You'll pay out of pocket. You can go back to that pharmacy and ask them to resubmit it if that has been within a week. I think most pharmacies are within a week or 10 days, something like that. You'll have to ask your pharmacy. So let's say you go in on May 1st, you get your prescription, it costs you $100. You want that reimbursed. So, and let's say your insurance gets active and now is active showing the system, just a few days later, you can go back into that pharmacy and see if they'll reprocess the claim and get you a reimbursement right then and there, or get your credit back on your credit card. Other than that, yes, you would have to take that and submit it to the insurance company to get reimbursed. So for prescriptions, you'll probably you just get reimbursed directly. Reminder, there's no gap in coverage. It's all retroactive. So if you lose coverage effective 4/1, the loss would be the last day of coverage would be May or March 31st, and everything would be backdated to start on April 1st, even if, let's say, you didn't sign up again until May or June. Okay. Real life scenario termination date is on 3/15/2025. Coverage ends 3/31, the end of March. Emergency call on May 15th. COBRA elected on May 20th. Coverage is then retroactive back to April 1st, and the claim on the emergency will be covered once premiums are paid for April and May. So that was an example that I gave earlier, and you can certainly work the system in that way. It's completely in your rights to do so. The cost of COBRA. So we went over this a little bit, but I'll just reiterate, COBRA is expensive because employers now pay most of the cost of most employees' premium. So the employees are sheltered in a lot of cases from the true cost of the monthly cost of healthcare. And the cost of healthcare when you're an employee is the employee share, the employer share. And once you go into COBRA, you pay a 2% admin fee. So you're paying what the employer paid before plus what you were paying before plus a 2% admin fee. Many employees are unaware of the true cost of the health insurance. Alternatives to COBRA, if it's too costly, then you could go to the marketplace. You can go to healthcare.gov for the access to the state exchanges. Many states offer rebates and premium credits or tax credits if you sign up through an exchange. So you could go that route. And you must enroll within 60 days of losing your coverage. You can try to go on your spouse's employer plan. Please remember that losing health insurance, even if it's in the middle of the year, even if you're outside open enrollment, it is a qualifying event for you to go on to another plan, either through the exchange or perhaps if you have a spouse or domestic partner going on their plan. Alternatives to COBRA. If COBRA is too costly, you could try Medicaid. It's based off of your income. Check your state's eligibility and rules, or a short-term health plan. They are not ACA compliant. Benefits are limited. They usually exclude pre-existing conditions, but can provide some temporary coverage if you're unable to get coverage any other way. Um, all right, so I just wanted to go over that briefly, hopefully talk about the real life scenarios that I see happen every day with COBRA, TPAs, HR, employees, and the awkward situations that come up in and around, in and around, why do I want to say in and in? And the awkward situations we see in and around COBRA. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I do check the comments, not really, but try to ignore the comments, actually, to be quite honest. If you are an HR, CEO, CFO, and you have health insurance, or you're interested in getting health insurance for your employees or offer employee benefits, or perhaps you are wondering if your employee benefits are up to snuff to today's standards, I do have a link down below where you can schedule a meeting with me. It's 100% free for me to do a one-time assessment with you to see if I can help you in any way. So you can take advantage of that. And other than that, we'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out until the end. Bye-bye.